All right, we are officially recording, so we are live. Thank you so much for everybody that's joining us today, especially to Kris and Lauren from WorkBC. We're really looking forward to learning about what wage options and subsidies there are available to businesses here in the Kootenay region. We're going to start, folks, with a brief presentation by way of a PowerPoint. So I'll share my screen here momentarily, but feel free to put any questions you have in the Q&A box. You're also welcome to type comments or questions into the chat. Lauren and myself will be monitoring that, and then yeah, we'll tap into Kris's expertise at the end of the presentation as well for any answers in that regard. Just wanted to first acknowledge that we, well, wherever you are, the land of which we gather today. For myself, it's the traditional and unceded territory of the Ktunaxa Nation and the Kitsganook First Nation and the Shuswap Indian Band. We are very grateful to have the opportunity to work in this territory and to call those folks partners with us in this. So with that, Kris or Lauren, just before I share the screen, is there anything from your side that you'd like to say to get us started?
Maybe a quick introduction?
For sure. Kris? Yeah, go for it, Kris.
My name is Kris Dickeson. I'm with WorkBC. I'm based in Cranbrook, and thanks to technology, we're able to easily meet up with people and get to know them and get that information out there. My role with WorkBC, it's a newer role that we've created, employer and community relations. So I deal with Fernie, Invermere, and Cranbrook, as well as media and marketing support. And Lauren is our CSS based out of Fernie. And I'd let you do a quick intro for yourself there, Lauren.
Sure, yeah. Like Kris said, I work out of the Fernie office, doing all WorkBC related things with Kootenay Employment Services. And I work also regionally across Invermere, Fernie, Cranbrook, and Creston as well.
Perfect. All right, are we ready for the PowerPoint, Kris?
We sure are.
Awesome. Just one sec here, I'll get it queued up. And we should be good to go on slide one. Just let me know when you need me to scroll through.
Okay, so yeah, this basically we've put together this PowerPoint geared at employers who are considering potentially accessing funding through the employee, or rather the wage subsidy program. You can go ahead and flip there, Pete. So I thought first we would quickly talk about what exactly a wage subsidy was. It is a program through WorkBC. It covers part of an employee's wage while they are training. It can be up to 50% of the employee's wage, and it can run for 24 weeks. And the eligible employers will be provided with a wage subsidy that is negotiated, and as well it includes the employer portion of the mandatory employment related costs. Lauren, is there a whole lot they need to know about the mandatory employment related costs, or is it more of a kind of a administrative end of things?
Yeah, I believe it's more administrative. Not in all cases we provide them, it's only when needed, so it's kind of something that can be negotiated case by case.
Thank you. So basically, you know, a wage subsidy, it's really when an employer is potentially in a financial situation where they need to hire somebody, or maybe they've found somebody they would like to hire and they don't quite have the skills provided to do the job. So this is a way for them to train the potential employee for the job, but they're not paying the full wage they'd pay them. It's the other 50% or whatever is negotiated is picked up by this program. So it's an excellent tool. Again, if you found that person that you think is going to be a really great fit, but they do need some training, this financially can allow you to do that. So you can go ahead and flip the slide. Thank you. So that obviously employees have to be eligible as well. It's fairly basic. They have to have paid into EI and become unemployed or laid off from a previous job. So basically they can't be working. And again, this potential client employee may be looking to get into a new area, a different line of work, but they're not completely trained. So, you know, say young fella's been working at a grocery store as a cashier, and all of a sudden there's an opportunity, maybe a local pub restaurant in town is looking for a server, no experience. This could be a perfect way for the employer to get somebody who they think would be a good fit, and this potential employee to get the training. The other eligibility, if they don't fit that one, is that they are a single parent and they're eligible for a single parent employment initiative. And there's obviously different eligibility for that. I don't think we need to go into all the details for that right now, but we certainly have that information if you want it. So you can go ahead and continue on. So in order for a company or a business to qualify to be in the wage subsidy, you have to be registered. You can't be connected to WorkBC Employment Services or KES, who is the company that delivers the WorkBC program in this area. So Kootenay Employment Services, WorkBC, you can't be affiliated with them. The position you're offering needs to be a minimum of 35 hours per week, unless there is circumstance where the client needs fewer hours, and that's documented and obviously approved by everybody. You have to offer insurable employment under the EI Act. Confirm that they wouldn't have been hired without the wage subsidy. So I think that's looking at kind of the financials and even the situation which a lot of you may be in currently, where the revenue is down, you kind of need to hire someone, but you're not quite making enough to hire someone full time. This is sort of a perfect scenario for you to be able to, you know, rely and use something to get yourself help as well as employer somebody. Confirm they're not an existing employer of you already. So if someone's already working for you, they're not really eligible to be on a wage subsidy for a different position at that employer. There are always some gray areas. Obviously, eligibility does go case by case. So this is something that could be discussed, but general rule, they can't already be employed by you. The position is normally part of the ongoing business operations. You have to confirm as well that you're not going to lay people off because you're hiring somebody else. The position offers the likelihood of long-term employment or provide needed work experience to enable the client to achieve long-term employment elsewhere. Basically, if the person's eligible and you're eligible, you need to be compliant with the legislation. Obviously, it's basically just, it has to be, a nutshell, it has to be a legit job, and you have to treat them as you would treat any employee. So, and kind of the last point on there is that you have to be able to pay the reasonable wages that are reflective of the wage rate for that position. So that's basically, it sounds like a lot of it is just kind of basic. If you're running a business and you hire somebody, it's all under that umbrella. So we can continue on. Thanks, Pete. And a couple of other things for the employer. You cannot be a Government of BC or Government of Canada organization. The employment can't be based on commission or piecework. So employment including some earnings on commission or piecework could be supportive. For instance, a car salesman, maybe sales in media where they get a base pay plus commission. Those could be considered. The client as well must be paid a guaranteed labor market wage in addition to the commission-based earnings. So again, it's just kind of being above the board. They cannot be an active client in self-employment services because that would imply that they are employed if they're self-employed. And they can't offer a position working under a WorkBC contract or be the WorkBC contractor that provides the wage subsidy. So you'll see over on the left side of the screen, we have a few quotes up from some business owners who have successfully hired or gone through the wage subsidy. We have some employers, in fact, who have done the wage subsidy more than once because it has been quite successful. The one here, I wanted to touch on it. It talks about allowing people to train their staff the way they want to train them. So you're getting someone coming into an industry who has no training. Say, like, for example, my earlier scenario with a young fellow working at a grocery store and could potentially become a server in a bar. Never done this. They can work with this person. They're not bringing bad habits from other jobs. So that's a situation right there. Because I think often as employers, we like to find people who've got that experience, and then you don't have to spend the time training them. That this here is a much more desirable scenario where you can spend the time and train them how you want them to work. So I'll get you to move on there, Pete. Thanks. So now we're at the frequently asked questions, and I'm sure there's going to be more as well. I think a big thing, who has time for paperwork? I know I don't. Especially with the amount of time we're spending on the screen nowadays, I might add. I almost miss paper and pen. So we appreciate that you guys are busy. You're often working full-time and doing the business ends of things. So most employers who've participated in the wage subsidy, they say that it was painless and a lot easier. Really, it's meant to cover employee training expenses when, hiring the new staff. We don't expect you to do a ton of paperwork, and we can get to that more later on here. I'll get you to switch to the next one there, Pete. So obviously, how does it work in the sense of the dollars and cents? You would do a direct deposit form, and we provide you with a form that you would fill out. You complete it, submit it along with a pay stub for that month. And obviously you would work out with us all the kind of ins and outs. You learn how to do it once and boom, you just do it the same way for the duration of that. And, obviously we're here to help you if there's concerns or confusion or clarification. So we could get the next one, Pete. Thank you. So the reimbursements would be paid monthly. So you're not going to really wait. You're not going to do the wage subsidy and get paid at the end. It's done monthly, so it doesn't hit your bank account massively harder. So 2 weeks for processing generally. So once again, if you get on kind of a rhythm of I got to pay my rent, I got to pay my bills, and I got to submit my forms to WorkBC for the wage subsidy. So. And if I could get you to hit the next one there. Now there's some situations where for whatever reason on the employer side or the employee side, things don't work out. And you're bound to the same employment standards when you hire a new staff, regardless of whether it's wage subsidy or not. And it wouldn't change this in fact. So let's say their employee is let go. You'd have to notify us in writing of the termination. Lauren, in a just clarification, if the employee decides it's not right for them, how does that exactly work?
Yeah, I guess the employee would just let their WorkBC employment counselor know, as well as obviously the employer, and I guess we would just end the wage subsidy if that's kind of what was agreed upon.
They would have to have, obviously you can't force someone to stay in the job, but they would have to have, reasonable reasons for wanting to leave. They're not bound to it, but I guess the idea is you don't want people jumping around from wage subsidy to wage subsidy.
For sure.
The goal of it is long-term employment.
For sure. And I think that's part of the application process as well, is really assessing whether or not it's a good fit and that all the supports are in place before the agreement is even signed. So it's also possible for employment counselors at WorkBC to do job coaching throughout and pop in and hopefully be there as a preventative measure for anything kind of going south. And the employment counselor is also available to the employer if the employer needs any help or like wants some insight on how to deal with any kind of issues with the client, because in theory the employment counselor will have a pretty good relationship with the employee as well.
If we could move on there, Pete, thank you. So next step, so there's a few ways to kind of initiate a wage subsidy. We do have, obviously we're in the business of helping people find jobs, so we know people who are looking for jobs. So as an employer, you could contact us and say, we're interested in a wage subsidy. This is what we do. Do you have anyone or know anyone who may be interested in this? We can also advertise your job on our job board. And if people start contacting you, or if you've got an ad out there, period, for a job, you can go through the process you go through with them, where maybe you do an interview, you review their references, and before you hire them, before any papers are signed, contact us, because we have to check if you're eligible and they're eligible. Once they've officially been hired and starting work, we can't retroactive and make that a wage subsidy. So you could also already have someone in mind and you haven't hired them yet, you're kind of sitting on it. Contact us. We get in touch with the potential employee. We walk them through the eligibility process. We get you the paperwork. And I mean, if everybody had the right information and everything was in place, we could get it up and going 48 hours, 2 to 3 business days, if everything is kind of in place and we're not waiting for documents or waiting for this or waiting for that. So it's not a huge, long paperwork process. So, and again, this is, I know there's other wage subsidies out there at this time, obviously with being in COVID. Those are really geared at you're trying to bring your staff back. This is a program that we've already had in place. This is not a response to COVID. This is something we've been offering for a very long time. And again, it's been extremely successful in all different sorts of businesses. I will not name businesses, but I will name areas. Pest control is one that have accessed the wage subsidy. We've had food places, we've had restaurants, we've had hardware stores. So a real kind of different array. We've even had a paralegal in a wage subsidy. So all sorts of different kinds of businesses and services are able to utilize this. And really you end up kind of tailoring it to what works for you. So we can flip on to the last one there. So, and this is just contact info for Lauren and I. I'll put up the address in Invermere, obviously, because you folks are in the Invermere area, you contact the Invermere office and we can certainly get things going for you. If you are interested, Lauren's information is there. My information is there as well. Obviously, we are still offering virtual services. But we are in the process, though, like some of you, at moving towards reopening, however that might look and whenever that might be. We're hoping in the very near future that we're able to offer some in-person services again, but that being said, our services offered virtually by phone, video conference, email, et cetera, that doesn't change how easy it is to access the services. So any questions, I guess, is.
I think there were a few that popped in there, and thanks so much, Kris, for all that information. That's great. Lauren, if I may, can you just put your and Kris's information in the chat, and people can just copy that as well? The presentation will be available after, but might just help for folks as well. And I see there was a couple that were answered here from Lauren already, so I think that's covered. Folks, just raise your hand or just type a comment into the chat if you wanted to ask a question verbally. We don't have a lot of people on the call today, so I think it's fine to be a little less formal and have some verbal questions asked. Question from my side, is there a capacity to the program? Like, is there a cap or any date sensitive timelines, or is it just an open-ended rolling program that that's available anytime for anyone?
No, as I said, it's a program that it was already existing, and there's no deadlines or certain times of the year it's offered, or capacity. To my knowledge, there's no max amount of people that could do it. Lauren, can there be 2 wage subsidy at one business at the same time?
That's a good question. I don't see why not, if each of them all meet all the policy requirements. And I would have to maybe double check. I don't think that's ever come up before, but off the top of my head, I don't think that's an issue. But I would say, like, our overarching mandate at WorkBC is to find people sustainable employment. So in a way, we're kind of focused on the client. And obviously the programs we have for the clients also benefit the employers. And so that's kind of the angle we're coming at. So as long as the wage subsidy opportunity will likely result in sustainable employment for that person, then that's really what the main goal is. Yeah.
Great. Leslie, I see that you raised your hand, so I'm just going to go ahead and unmute you here.
Hello.
Hi there.
Hi. I work for Eagle Ranch as the HR coordinator, and I just wanted to confirm. We have, at the moment, we don't have year-round positions. We have seasonal. This does not take into account seasonal. You're looking for long-term employment. That's correct?
Right, so that's definitely a great question, and something that we deal with a lot in these seasonal communities that we live in. Yeah, it's hard because WorkBC is saying, you know, ideally we want people to get sustainable year-round employment. Obviously that's not as straightforward as it sounds in Invermere, Fernie, all these areas. So we can usually figure something out, like if the client has another opportunity for the off season, and it's just all kind of assessed and sorted out that we can figure out a good plan, then it's not a black and white off the table kind of scenario.
Okay. Okay.
It is really case by case though, so we would definitely want to talk about each case individually and see what we could do.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you, Leslie. Thanks for the question.
I can think.
Oh, sorry,
I can think of one example. We had a wage subsidy. It was a lawn care company who wanted someone mowing and trimming and yard work in the summer and spring, and then winter, fall, they moved into snow removal. So that's a seasonal job. Obviously, Leslie, it's somewhat different from the business that you are from, but again, there are ways that, as Lauren was saying, it's in some ways great because we do what we can to be able to make this work for both the employee and the employer.
Would a scenario potentially be if it's a recurring job season over season? So maybe it's a recurring summer job that you train them one summer and you know that you're going to hire them back for the next summer in the same role and or kind of similar capacity, would that be a reasonable fit?
Typically not, because in theory you would have already trained them for that position, so they should already be good to go. It really is around training somebody on the job that you wouldn't hire if you didn't have the opportunity to train them on the job.
Yeah, I was just thinking more of the sustainable employment. So you train them 1 year, you utilize the subsidy, but then you bring them back next year at your own expense.
Okay, yeah,
they've
for
already
sure.
trained on the subsidy program the year before, that kind of idea.
Oh, definitely, yeah.
We're going to go to another verbal question here from Karina. Karina's in Radium with True Key Resorts. Karina, you should be able to chat and talk right now. Unmuting you. Maybe. Go for it, Karina.
Thank you. I just I asked a question about how do we get access to the candidate pool, and I just wanted to follow up on that question. How do we know there are candidates that are looking for jobs that qualify for the WorkBC subsidy, and do you contact employers, or do we have to be registered with you in order for us to be considered as an eligible employer?
So there's yeah, for sure. There's a few ways that we can go about it. One is if you're interested in being a wage subsidy employer, you could call Millie at the Invermere WorkBC Center, and she can kind of let you know if she has anybody that she's working with already that might be a good fit. The other scenarios that could occur are, yeah, you could have somebody in mind. If you did some interviews, then you would send that person to WorkBC, and we would work with the client first to determine that they're eligible, and then we would work with you as well. And then the other scenario is there's a client who comes to us and is in WorkBC services, and they maybe have an employment goal that they want to work with your company, and then we would explore that for sure.
I think.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I saw Karen. I think too. If you could even post the job, and then there would be some interest, and we can certainly help. You know, I was saying earlier, don't sign any papers with them and hire them until we've checked if they're eligible. We could even like check if they're eligible prior to you doing that first interview if you send them to us, because we have had employers who've said, I will hire for this job, but the person, they need to be eligible for the wage subsidy. So, you know, there's always that potential. I mean, you could have 5 people in mind, send all 5 of them to us and we can check their eligibility.
Okay, so then I could post at the WorkBC Center itself.
Yep. I'm going to actually email our job posting website. I'm going to email it to Pete shortly here. And yeah, you just go ahead and put the posting on. The other option is you can send it to me and I can post it for you.
Okay, thank you.
Great, thanks, Karina. Did that answer all your questions?
It did.
Awesome. Looks like we'll go back to Leslie here. I think she's got a follow-up question.
Yes. What I wanted to know is year over year, we have various positions available at our golf course in F&B and guest services and everything from the pro shop to lodging when some of that comes online. So year over year, if you wanted to bring in the same person or the same persons and train them in a different position, is that available to us?
So there is a repeatability maximum for wage subsidies per client, which I think is 2. So the maximum is 2 wage subsidies per person, although we would definitely want to explore that and be able to explain why that's the best option for the client, just so that it meets our policy. Because ideally, if we rationalize that a client needs a wage subsidy in one position, we want that to be a long-term job, but obviously that's not always so simple, like I was saying. So I think it's something that we could discuss for sure.
Okay, I'm just thinking in terms of you bring someone on to help in the busy season of the spring, summer, and fall for the golf course, and then of course the golf course shuts down because winter. But we have banquets, weddings, that type of thing, where we would like to continue to work with the individual and utilize their skills, but we need to train them in a different role.
Right. Going back to one of the policy points, sorry, it's so policy heavy that I have it up beside me. I don't believe, now that I'm thinking about it, we can do the same, like it can't be an existing employee, technically.
So it has to be an additional employee that we would bring in to train for, let's say, the banquet
Yeah.
server, and the individual who is working, let's say, as turf care, well, their services, we wouldn't be able to employ them because, you know, it's winter and the golf course is closed.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Leslie. Barry, I know you asked a question around the 75% wage subsidy. Do you want me to unmute you? I know it's not the wheelhouse of the folks that are on the call, but I might be able to offer you a little bit of insight on that if you like. And you should be live now. Oh. Should be live now, Barry.
Hi there. Can you hear me?
Bet.
Yeah. Okay. I guess we were just really concerned. I mean, obviously, I'm getting a sense that this is definitely just for new employees, correct?
Yes.
Yes,
Not existing.
that's right.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I was before this started today. That was the issue. I was just really concerned on the two differences, why there would be two different options. So, yeah, no, you've answered my question. Thank you very much.
Perfect. Barry, before you stop there, my understanding of that 75% wage subsidy is yes, it is seasonal employees are eligible. There is something around a 14-day employment period before they're as part of the eligibility. So if you're bringing people back for the summer because they've extended it now to the end of August, I believe you should be, provided that we haven't seen the latest requirements around, you know, are they going to continue the 30% reduction as they've extended that program and some other things like that. We haven't seen, they haven't announced that yet, but on a call with BDO yesterday, they expressed that the government's intent is to make it more accessible than less accessible. So they may even drop that requirement down a little bit to make sure businesses have access to that program because it's such a critical one for the summer.
Okay, and so anybody that is on the SERB program or UI, as long as the dollar amount is kept under $1,000, the person can still collect both, correct? Or be on both?
Yeah, that's my understanding.
That's as far as I can gather, that's what I get too, but okay.
Yeah. Because the wage subsidy, I believe, is your total payroll.
Right.
Once employees are eligible on that. You know, I do feel like the government is trying to get people off SERB, and that's part of the incentive to businesses to be able to cover that much of the wage to get them back in the workforce and keep that connection with their business. So yeah, you have to be a little bit careful of that. But I know people are looking at all angles in terms of what's in their best interest and what they're comfortable with from a safety regulations and feeling safe at work and that whole thing. So.
Right, and it's hard to know moving forward how busy everyone's going to be here yet.
Absolutely.
Hard to tell. Yeah, some days are good and some are pretty quiet still. So.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you.
Great, thanks, Barry. I'm going to go back to Karina here. Just give me a moment, Karina. Go for it, Karina.
Thank you. Just to follow up on Leslie's question. So if we hire somebody for a position and they're not a fit for that position, but they're a fit for a different position in that company, would that subsidy follow them to that next position, or do they have to reapply? Do we have to do the reapplication thing all over again?
I think you would have to tweak the application stuff a bit, because there would be an application that the employer fills out, and that would include like the job title and the job description and stuff, so that would have to be changed. And also part of the employer application is doing a training plan for the client or the employee, just to show like week 1 and 2 they'll be working on learning this, week 3 to 4 this, so that would have to be tweaked as well, and probably an amended agreement signed, but I don't think that would be impossible.
Okay. So if at the end of the summer we have a room attendant that has an aptitude for guest services, or vice versa, or whatever, can we continue the subsidy once they're done everything that they've learned in housekeeping, and then move them over to guest services for the winter? And then there's a whole other bunch of training there.
I believe as long as it's within the 24-week maximum,
Okay.
we can make that work. Or maybe we agree at the beginning that it's sort of a hybrid position with kind of 2 roles. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
We definitely try to make things work as much as we can, as long as it fits into the policy. So we try and explain things really well, so it makes sense.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Great questions, Karina, and real examples of what we see as businesses in this region.
Mm-hmm.
Kris, maybe a question for you. I know on one of the bullet points there it said paying reasonable wages. So can you maybe expand on that a little bit? Oftentimes, especially in our region, to attract workers, we have to pay a little bit more than, say the going rate for a position, or certainly more than minimum wage, especially high demand roles like housekeeping and those kinds of things. So how do you assess that? Do you, is there kind of a range that you kind of cap it at, that that you'll only go up to a certain amount?
I believe, Lauren, is there the labor market information on our website, on one of the websites, which kind of gives you an idea of how much somebody working that position should be earning? Yeah, obviously this is different times, and I know, thank goodness, a lot of employees are offering their frontline workers a little bit more than they generally do. So are you asking if there's a maximum amount?
Yeah, if a business is, just for argument's sake, say the average industry wage is $18 an hour for a housekeeper, and businesses have to pay up to 22 or something like that, just because they can't attract people, especially if they have to train them into that role. Is there a threshold that you measure things from in terms of how far you would pay that wage?
I think, Lauren, if we can make it rational, then it's,
Yeah,
again,
there's no black and white limits or anything like that, and we would definitely want to take into account the area. So even if we needed some evidence of that, like even just saying, oh, this employer has hired that, like at that wage in the past too, or it's somewhat similar to what's been going on, then that's totally fine.
Great. Perfect. Well, I'll put a last call out for any final questions. Just go ahead and make a note in the chat, or just click the raised hand button if you wanted to add any questions from our attendees. Otherwise, final comments and thoughts from Kris and from Lauren.
Yeah, going through it, it's a lot of information. It's a lot of housekeeping stuff, but you know, all in all, it's a horrible time for businesses. I mean, let's be honest. There's a lot of uncertainty, a lot of unknowns. There's a lot of frustration, and a lot of, I need to hire, but I don't know how busy I'm going to be. Where's the money going to come from? The wage subsidy sounds like it's a lot. It's not. And as Lauren has mentioned, and I've mentioned, it's not black and white. It's not, here's the criteria, tick the boxes and you're in. We can be creative. We can try and make things work for both the employer and the employee. And again, you know, you don't have to be right on the point of hiring them and rely. You can say, yeah, you can have this job, but it's suitable for you to be eligible for the wage subsidy. The government understands that too. So, you know, we're here. Any questions, you can call me, you can call Lauren, you can call, you know, Millie and Invermere if you like. We can certainly do what we can to make this work for you, to at least even get one more person in helping you. So it's been a tough couple of months, and again, you know, things are just starting to open up, and maybe I don't know what the weather's like where you guys are. I'm feeling like it's still winter some days. So, but you know, I'm hoping that things are going to get better for people, and if we can help, you know, certainly we're here.
That's great. Go ahead, Lauren, if you had a couple of comments there.
Yeah, like Kris said, don't hesitate to call us if you have any questions or anything like that. And we also have a lot of other programs aside from wage subsidy that can kind of help as well. So if you want to chat more about that, give us a call. Just really quickly, one good example is we have Job Start funding, which is basically if you have a new employee who's just started, we can kind of help them get going with their job through providing like essential work gear. Like if steel-toed boots are required for the job, we can get that for the person. Even provide like commuting money for the first few weeks of their job, stuff like that. So we got a lot going on at WorkBC. So if you have any questions or want to know more, just let us know.
And for those of you in the food services, Food Safe is another one that we can help pay for. So
that's excellent. I know you're available virtually, but I've also heard maybe in the next 2 or 3 weeks, at least in Invermere, you're planning on opening the Invermere office, and you've just moved down by the dry cleaners, for those that are familiar with that. Do you have a specific date on the physical reopening?
Yeah, like everybody else, we have to figure out all the things we have to do. I mean, we're on the road, but yeah, it takes some time.
We're really waiting for like plexiglass and some supplies before having a firm date, and then I think we'll have maybe 1 or 2 days open at the start to see people by appointment only, and it'll be a pretty gradual reopening that way.
Fantastic. Well, I think we've covered everybody's questions, and certainly had a lot of great information through the PowerPoint, which we'll make available after this as well. Of course, anyone can reach out to either of you at any time. So thank you very much to both of you for making the time today. One of these days, we'll probably do this in person again. But yeah, I really appreciate that you've made it work for today. So
well, thanks for inviting us and welcoming us. It's good to connect with people and, you know, see how they're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, well, that'll officially cue the end of the meeting, and this recording will be available within the next 24 hours or so. Thanks, everybody. Have a great rest of your day and a great week.
Thank you.